This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, my husband Troy and I are discussing the top 5 money issues that can break a marriage. Today, we are diving into a sometimes uncomfortable and friction causing topic that happens in many marriages: the intersection of family issues and money. So, this can take a variety of forms. It could be providing ongoing support into adulthood for adult children. I've seen that create conflict, especially I've seen it even done secretly, and that's not good at all. With our kids, if you still have kids in the home, you might have a lot of conflict over family issues as it relates to spending money. So, are you going to spend money on sports? And, you can spend a lot of money putting your kid in club sports versus rec sports. It's like 10 times the cost. And that can extend all the way into decisions like where they're going to attend college, how that would be paid for. And if you have kids too, like there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make. Just who's going to take them to school? Who's going to pick them up? A lot of times one of the spouses has to work reduced hours or maybe not work at all for several years or work part-time. So there's all sorts of important decisions about how to manage your family and what you do about your family and the priorities you set with your family as that intersects with money, career, etc. But beyond kids, I think what I wanted to talk about that affects a lot of listeners of this podcast as well is extended family. So maybe helping your parents as they get older. Maybe one of the spouses has a sibling or a family member who is like always out of work. They're always needing help with their bills. They just can't get their life together. And one of the spouses is providing financial support and helping them out, helping them pay their bills, pay their rent. And the other spouse is like, no, it's just a flood of money leaving every month and it's going into a deep, dark black hole. So I think what comes to mind with this situation, not in our own marriage, but something that you witnessed, is your dad provided a lot of financial support to a lot of people. Well, maybe not a lot, but like a variety, not just his mom, his mother-in-law, and other people as well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and what your experience was like with that growing up.
Yeah. So in my scenario, my dad, up until we were in high school, was the only worker and income earner generally. My mom raised my brother and I as a stay-at-home mom. But, in terms of whether there was any conflict or anything about that, there wasn't any. It was viewed as the right thing to do that they were able to do.
Because your dad provided quite a bit of support to his own mom and his mother-in-law. So what did he do for them?
Yeah, I mean, you name it: housing, bills, living expenses. They were both in, life circumstances where they didn't have assets to carry them through their elderly years.
Yeah, but you said something earlier that you think it was a good use of money and you never thought that was the wrong decision that he was making. And I would agree with that. Like providing support for your parents is something that we should all want to do, hopefully, especially if they need it. But you said you would have felt different if what?
Yeah. So in our circumstance, our family, we never, I use the phrase, went without. We had all our needs provided for, and at more than a basic level. Say my brother and I were pretty spoiled in a lot of regards. It's one of those things where it wasn't an issue. I could possibly, looking at it now at 41 years of age, and if I was in that situation, I could see it becoming an issue if it's like, look, this is causing more sacrifice than I was planning on or intending on my family. And maybe we're, struggling in certain areas because we're helping whoever it is financially.
Right. And usually those aren't small bills. Sometimes, if you're providing help here or there, or you're buying,
Yeah, they're not small bills.
Right. Yeah. So then that dramatically changes like big decisions, the house you can live in and the cars you drive and whether or not you can go on a vacation that year, whether or
Where
not you can.
kids go to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. It dictates
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if the financial support is large. What do you think would be the important thing for couples to not have conflict over this issue? Like, what needs to happen for them to both be okay with providing financial support versus not? Or maybe one spouse has resentment because the other spouse wants to provide support or is providing support, and the other spouse doesn't agree on that.
Well, really open and honest communication and everyone being honest about the situation could very well be a situation where it's like, oh, we're going to give money to this relative, but we know the facts and circumstances, and say that relative is, they're going to waste it on something or do something improper with the
Mhm.
money. Things like that. It's like, okay, well, we have to scrutinize this a little bit. We have to be honest and open with each other about what we think is going to happen there. Maybe you come to the conclusion that you should not do that. So
Yeah.
there has to be dialogue.
Right. And it's hard though, because I think one of the spouses, I don't have a brother, so I'll just use this example. Let's say I just have this brother who he can't hold down a job, he can't pay his rent, maybe he has some addiction issues, but for whatever reason, because I've known my brother for 40 years and we have a particular dynamic, I cannot bear to just watch him struggle. Or maybe I feel like I have to give him money because I would feel too guilty if I didn't. Or he asks for money all the time and I just can't say no. And I can see in those scenarios where the other spouse sees that money going into a black hole and never to come out again, get wasted, how it's like, can't you just say no? And I think that happens a lot too. Maybe even with like, especially with adult kids, one spouse wants to provide support for the adult child, and the other spouse is like, no, let them figure it out.
Well, I think that happens a tremendous amount, and I think you could go. This is oversimplifying it, but if you interviewed a lot of people that are on the streets, homeless, things like that, those conversations occurred between parents at some point, and that's how a decision was made.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people
Right.
end up on the streets. But thankfully, we haven't had conflict over this and haven't had to provide, ongoing support to adult children but we may have to someday.
Well, the oldest is 11, so there's plenty of time to find that out.
Yeah. The key is discussing it. And I think oftentimes if couples are in disagreement about this, they're just not going to maybe come to the point where they can agree. And so one spouse just has to kind of say, whatever you want to do and stay out of it or come to some sort of compromise. But yeah, I definitely see it causing a lot of friction. Family issues always cause friction in marriage, and they can. But it doesn't have an easy solution because it's family.
It doesn't. And I think you hit the nail on the head that there are just going to be situations where you just say, in a proper way, I'm throwing my hands up. I'm moving on. Fine. Okay, you want to do that? You're going to do that. I'm not going to bring it up in a nasty argument a year later.
Yeah.
You just like, I have to accept it and move on if that is possible.
Yeah. The no win-win. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.